Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing with a question so profound, so timeless, that it feels like it's coming from somewhere deeper than your own thoughts? You know the one. The question that has haunted humanity for centuries, that philosophers have debated, dissected, and written entire volumes about. What is the meaning of life? It's a question so simple, so ordinary in its phrasing, that you might think, why does this keep us up at night? Why does it matter so much? But as soon as you let it settle in your mind, something shifts. You can almost feel the weight of it. Heavy, elusive, and unyielding. It's not just a question of what's my purpose. It's deeper, more existential. It's the kind of question that stops you in your tracks and makes everything else seem insignificant in comparison. Now, imagine this. Philosophers, wise thinkers, some of the greatest minds to ever walk the earth, have tried to answer this very question. And guess what? They haven't cracked it. Not really. Oh, they've offered some answers for sure. Some have said we find meaning in our actions, in our relationships, in our accomplishments. Others have suggested that life is inherently meaningless and that our attempts to find purpose are nothing but distractions. But no one has been able to provide a definitive, all-encompassing answer. Some have even wondered if we're not meant to know the answer at all. Think about it. Here we are, human beings, with minds capable of incredible feats, able to reach the farthest corners of space and unravel the mysteries of the universe. And yet, when it comes to the ultimate question of life's meaning, we're still grasping at straws. Why is that? Let's take a moment and consider this. You wake up each day, go through the motions, do what you have to do. You go to work. You take care of your family. You make plans. You build relationships. You experience joy and sorrow. You're constantly moving, constantly striving, constantly chasing something. But deep down, do you ever feel like something is missing? Like there's something just beyond your grasp? Something so fundamental and essential that you can't help but feel it's the key to unlocking everything? You wake up in the morning, take a deep breath, and think, is this it? You go through the day with a sense that there's more, but you can't quite put your finger on what that more is. The feeling is there, just out of reach, like a shadow that slips away when you try to focus on it. And it's not like you haven't tried. You've read books, you've listened to podcasts, you've attended seminars, you've had deep conversations with friends, you've sought answers in relationships, in success, in spirituality. You've tried everything, hoping that one day you'll find the key to the mystery. But every time you think you've found the answer, the question shifts again, and you realize that you haven't found it at all. Here's the thing. This is the human experience. We are constantly searching for meaning, and yet we never quite find it. We're always looking, always questioning, always wondering if we're missing something. It's the great cosmic riddle, the one that keeps us up at night and fills our waking hours with existential longing. And yet, despite all of our searching, the answer remains elusive. Even the greatest minds throughout history haven't been able to crack it. They've tried, they've tried, but they've never really found it. And that's where the dilemma lies. We're all caught in this endless loop of searching, of questioning, and of never quite reaching a conclusion. This is where the real frustration sets in. We know there's an answer out there. We can feel it in the depths of our soul. But no matter how hard we look, no matter how many books we read, how many philosophers we study, the answer is always just beyond our reach. Let's break this down further. For centuries, philosophers have tried to answer the question, what is the meaning of life? And though they've come up with a variety of theories, no one has truly nailed it. In fact, the more we dig into the history of philosophical thought, the more we realize that the question itself might be the most important part of the equation. Let's start with the ancient Greeks. Socrates, perhaps the most famous philosopher of all, believed that the first step toward wisdom was realizing that we don't actually know anything. He famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Think about that for a second. What if the answer to life's meaning isn't something we can know, but something we have to accept? What if the pursuit of understanding life is itself what gives our lives meaning? Socrates wasn't interested in answers. He was interested in the search. He believed that the very act of questioning and seeking wisdom was what gave life its value. And that, perhaps, is where we've all gone wrong. We've been so focused on finding an answer to the question that we've forgotten that the search itself is the meaning. But if we turn to another philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, we encounter a very different approach. Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead." At first glance, this may seem like a dramatic, even nihilistic statement. But what Nietzsche meant was that traditional sources of meaning, like religion and a divine creator, no longer held sway over modern thought. The idea of an all-knowing God, a higher purpose ordained by a divine being, was losing its power. In Nietzsche's view, without a divine purpose, life was meaningless. But here's the twist. Instead of giving up, instead of falling into despair, Nietzsche argued that it was up to us, humans, to create our own meaning. No longer could we rely on a higher power to provide us with purpose. We had to create it ourselves. But that's not an easy task. When you live in a world without an inherent meaning, you're faced with the terrifying reality that you have to make sense of it all on your own. How do you create meaning in a world that seems indifferent to your existence? This is where existentialism comes in. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus explored this very question. They believed that life was absurd, meaningless, and that it's up to us to impose meaning on it. But here's the catch. While they believed in the freedom to create our own meaning, they also recognized the deep, suffocating weight of that freedom. Camus, in particular, wrote about the myth of Sisyphus, the story of a man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down every time. For Camus, Sisyphus symbolized the human condition. We struggle, we strive, we search for meaning, but it always feels like we're pushing a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down again. It's endless, it's absurd. And yet, Camus argued, we must keep pushing. Isn't that what life feels like? We reach for meaning, for purpose, for answers, and yet it always seems to slip through our fingers. But maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Maybe the struggle itself, the search, is what makes life meaningful. The very act of trying to understand life, even if we never succeed, is what gives us a sense of purpose. Now, let's bring in one more perspective, that of Immanuel Kant, who believed that the meaning of life was bound to our capacity for reason. According to Kant, human beings are defined by their ability to act in accordance with moral laws, and thus the meaning of life lies in how we apply these principles in our lives. According to him, we're not here to simply live. We're here to live ethically, to strive for the good. But in order to act ethically, we need to question the world around us, and indeed the very idea of what it means to live a good life. For Kant, the meaning of life lies in our ethical engagement with the world, even if the outcome of that engagement is never fully realized or understood. But perhaps the most radical of all ideas comes from the realm of nihilism, a viewpoint famously associated with philosophers like Nietzsche and later adopted by thinkers like Martin Heidegger. Nihilism suggests that life is, in its core, devoid of any inherent meaning or purpose. This isn't a defeatist stance, though far from it. Nihilism encourages us to confront life's meaninglessness head-on, with a clear mind, and to create our own meaning in defiance of a universe that offers none. But this approach can be unsettling. It invites us to look at the vast emptiness of existence and find something of value within it. It pushes us to embrace the freedom that comes with acknowledging that we have no inherent destiny or direction, and yet we are still free to make our lives meaningful in our own way. And now, here's where things start to take an unexpected turn. What if, in all our search for answers, we've been missing the point entirely? What if the quest for an answer isn't the point at all? What if, instead of hunting for some final definitive truth, we should be embracing the question itself? Think about it. We spend so much of our lives obsessed with the need to know. We want certainty. We want to understand why we're here. We want to solve the mystery. But what if we're not supposed to solve it? What if the meaning of life comes not from finding the answer, but from asking the question forever? Let that sink in for a moment. What if the very act of questioning, of wondering, of pondering the vast mysteries of existence is the meaning? When we stop trying to impose answers, we create space to experience life for what it truly is, an open-ended adventure. This shift can be transformative. Instead of stressing over the why of life, we start to embrace the how. How can we live fully in the absence of certainty? How can we love deeply in the absence of a neat explanation for why we exist? When we stop chasing an elusive answer, we're free to live, to experience every moment as it comes, to explore, to question, and to find meaning in our own way, without the weight of needing to solve the riddle of existence. In a sense, the moment we let go of needing answers is the moment we truly begin to live. Life becomes rich, not in its answers, but in its questions. The mystery becomes the adventure. What if, instead of asking, "What is the meaning of life?" we simply asked, "What now?" What can we do today that brings meaning? What can we create in the here and now? What can we experience that makes the mystery of life worthwhile?